Good afternoon and welcome to the Voice of the CFA. I'm your host, Carol Lee Roberts, and as president of the Institute for Divorce Financial Advisors, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my guest, Dan Bemel. And Dan, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Carol. So nice to be here, and thank you for having me. My name's Dan. I'm a private wealth advisor at UBS Private Wealth Management, and I've been doing this for about 15 years. I think I've been a CDFA for about 6 years, and it's been the best decision I've ever made in my career and my business, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it and dig in a little bit.
One of the questions we ask almost all of our guests is why they decided to focus on divorce in their practice. And as part of that discussion, we normally touch on the fact that I get a lot of questions on why anyone would want to focus on divorce since you're dealing with people in such a traumatic time of their life. So why did you decide to focus on divorce?
Yeah, well, there's two sides of our business, right? There's managing a family's wealth, the real work that we do with our clients, and then you have to grow a business. And that's true of any service industry, whether you're a doctor or a carpenter. You have to grow a business and build a client base. And for me, looking around the landscape here in Los Angeles, where there's a lot of very talented advisors, very saturated and crowded market, I was thinking about what I could bring and who I am. And many of those advisors were kind of cut from the same cloth, typical stockbroker types. That's just not me. I'm never going to compete in that space. And my background is in the law as an attorney, as a former practicing attorney and licensed attorney. Thinking about the kind of clients I wanted to work with and where I can be different and stand out a little bit, and then learning about the CDFA license, it all came together. It all just kind of clicked. But like many things, it was also luck. And my first experience working on a divorce case that set all this in motion was a transfer referral from an attorney who my mom was friends with in spinning class. And they made the connection, and that set the whole thing in motion.
So what is the one thing you wish you would have known starting out that you know now?
Well, I think that it's how to do this the right way, right? And a lot of people talk about working on family law cases or helping people going through the divorce. And it wouldn't change my decision at all, but I don't think I was prepared really for what that means and to really do it the right way. I think in these situations, being emotionally available and really putting your whole self into it is so key. But that can take a toll on your own life and on your family. And you hear the family law attorneys talk about this too, because when you're in the middle of these situations, it's almost like trauma bonding with the clients, and because they're in a really intense period in your own life. And if you're not emotionally available and empathetic, I think it's a disservice to the client. And I think that's why it's very difficult for a lot of financial advisors to do it and do it in the right way, because frankly, they have the egos or they're the straight alpha male stockbroker types. They can't delve into situations like that, but you have to take on the pain and the passion of the people that you're working with in order to be able to really give them good advice, both during the case and then after the case, because we have the luxury, unlike the family law attorneys, of a 30-year plus relationship with our clients. And so you really have to live it and be present and be in the community. So everybody kind of sees that and how you're doing that. And I didn't know that going in. And that's something that I've learned and we've learned as a team along the way.
When we were talking before, one of the things you said that I found very interesting was going back to this idea of it's the start of a long-term relationship with a client. So can you walk me through your steps in your CDFA practice? What do you focus on when you first meet the person? What do you do?
Yeah, and I think it depends when we get brought in, right? When the family law attorney brings us in, and from our standpoint, the earlier the better, right? Because we can add more impact. And as a CDFA, and I often flash back to the exam when I see issues or I'm making calculations or doing things like, oh yeah, that was on the test or in the modules that we learned. It really is applicable, but and again, this is marrying my experience and my expertise in our business as a CDFA and as an attorney to really help develop the messaging and the story in a case. So whether that's helping the lawyers translate the financial issues for a client, working with a client to build a realistic budget that feeds directly into their INE, reviewing the other side's PDD, identifying issues that require deeper analysis by a forensic, starting to sketch out financial plans and the future value of a settlement, and then stress testing proposals that either our side is going to make or the other side is going to make. That's all really powerful work that a CDFA can bring to the table. And if you can issue, spot, and identify these things, you can be an incredible partner to the attorneys. I mean, just the other day, I was reviewing a 1,200 page long PDD from the other side and going through, and it was like on page 1,000, we found, and there's obviously tons of stuff that was irrelevant to the work, but we found a $63 million tax deferral that wasn't listed as an asset in a footnote. And it was, we were able to unpack that and explore it and argue credibly that that should be included on the balance sheet as an asset. And if one side wants it, then there needs to be an offset on the other side. It's community property, and here in California, that's a big deal because the default setting is that it's community if it was acquired during marriage, and this was. So things like that are, the earlier we get involved, the better. And then as we're getting closer to the end of the case, or definitely after the case, the work can change.
Can you discuss a little bit about after the case? I know that when I'm speaking about what a CDFA does and what a CDFA's value can be, I often harken back to my days at Merrill Lynch and the number of people that would start estate planning and have a trust created and would never fund the trust. And I think we have a similar situation with divorce decrees and when the divorce is finalized. What are the important to-dos after the divorce is finalized?
Yeah, there's so much. And you said, I mean, the trust example you gave is like the tip of the iceberg. That happens all the time. And I think the important thing is one of the important things to do is you have to create a framework and structures and process around all the work. And so at the end of the case, or maybe right after the case, when the settlement is like done, when you know what's going to happen, whether it's right before it's signed and funded or right after, you really have to start with a solid financial plan. Because that's the framework, that's the structure that's going to inform the real life side of things. In terms of the technical work, there's a lot. There's stress testing the outcome of the case. What can you spend? And in our view, people dress it up and they make a big deal and they kind of make financial planning into this black box. We try to demystify that. It's really simple. It's what are the odds that you're going to outlive the money, right? Based on what you're spending. It's that. What do you have? What are you going to do? And will you outlive your money? And so we try to really break it down and come up with a plan. Obviously, there's a budget component to that and a spending component to that. That's the first thing. And then we get into the technical, and this is something we talk to the family law attorneys all the time, is you got, especially on the high net worth cases that we're working on, you have to have a lot of firepower. So that's tracking GP and LP interest to make sure all liquidity events and private valuations are properly accounted for and paid out. That's staying on top of Osler Smith payments, and of course, general support payments too. But if there's any additional support payments here in LA, Osler Smith is in many cases And we find errors all the time in maybe the business manager's calculations or the other attorney's calculations. And that, of course, always results in additional payout to our client. There's oftentimes running back into court, somebody runs in back into court to demand a modification. And so we want to help counter that and show why it's premature. So we analyze short and long-term income patterns around modification orders. We supervise division of assets, of course, especially illiquid assets. That can be a long and time-consuming process. There's cases where it takes a year or more to break up some of those holdings. And then it's like the trust issues, the other structural issues, setting up trusts, getting life insurance that may even be provided as one of the elements of a settlement, tax issues, setting up philanthropy programs and plans, and then delving into the real life side, which I know we'll talk about, and helping somebody come into their own and control the wealth. That's a big deal too.
Do you find that you are most often dealing with the financial decision maker in the family or the outspouse or both equally? Or
for us, it's almost always the outspouse. And we've basically built our practice to serve the outspouse. What we found is that's who needs the help, frankly. And, UBS as a firm has done a lot of research into this through our client segment team and our analytics team. And the stats are really powerful that it's about confidence. And you see it in the numbers. 80% of women who remarry take a more active role in finances because they've been through it and they learn. And it's for us, the approach is really to build confidence. So everything we do is to build financial literacy and financial confidence in the outspouse as they start the next chapter of their life. And that confidence gap, even when they don't know anything about investing or finances, 79% of men are confident. No surprise, right? That not to demean my own gender, but it's a irrational confidence versus women, even when they have financial literacy, only 55% of women are confident making decisions. And so there's so much research that the firm has done around these issues that we've consciously built our practice as a counterweight to the structural dynamics that exist in our business and in our society. I mean, and you have to acknowledge that if you're going to do this work. Until 1974, women would have to have a male cosigner if they were applying for credit. And until 1981, in 1981, the Supreme Court finally overturned state laws. There were active state laws that gave men unilateral control over joint property with women, with their spouses. That's crazy. That was not that long ago. Those dynamics are still prevalent in our society, but especially in the financial services industry. So we actually called our team empowerment advisors, just so right off the top, people know that that's our vision and our goal for our clients.
It's funny, when I first started with IDFA, I would get contacted by conferences and stuff, and it was always, we need someone to speak on a women's issue. Will you come speak on divorce? And I would start doing this. Why is divorce always pegged as a woman's issue? And I'd laughingly say, most divorces involve both a man and a woman. It's not just a woman's issue. But when you start looking at things like the wage gap and retirement savings gap and poverty information, oh my goodness, it's a woman's issue. I mean, women make over their lifetime $1 million less than the average man. Their retirement are a third of the average man. It's very much a woman's issue.
Yeah, and if you think about where we're practicing, and I don't know if this is true in the rest of the country, but for our practice here in Los Angeles, especially in this private wealth, high net worth space that our business sits in, it's even more true. And I think, again, that's just the society and the nature of the business. Not always. We have plenty of clients that come in that know where every dollar is and are ready to roll. But there's a lot of time is spent in our practice. We're very select with the clients that we bring on. So we have the bandwidth in the room to do this work of education. We actually have these beats when we're sitting with a client and we're talking about what we want them to do, right? It's two sides. There has to be buy-in from both sides. There's a few different beats that we want them to know that we expect from them and what we're all working for. So the first is to engage, educate, get educated, help us educate you. Hopefully they start feeling empowered, they evolve as people, and then finally they can exhale and breathe, right? Like that's the path that we're trying to lead clients down. And it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. We want to help take the shame away. Sometimes there's this guilt of not knowing or not being involved and feeling insecure. There's trust issues around money. To do this the right way, you have to help people get through that. We talk about how to think about money, the purpose of money, matching that with the values and vision. All of this has to happen before you get to investing. And yes, investing is the bread and butter of what we do, of course. At the end of the day, we want to help people grow and maximize their wealth. But there's so much work that you can do before you get there, even in just how we talk about money, talking about money in terms of liquidity, longevity, and legacy. Just that framing and that construct can be really powerful.
So if you could talk to practicing attorneys right now, practicing family law attorneys, what would your advice be to them about the benefits of working with a CDFA? Why should
I think I said it before. It's just bringing firepower. I mean, CDFAs are trained to do this kind of financial modeling and projections. And yes, there's plenty of tools out there. We're not reinventing the wheel. We use software that everybody has access to. And the attorneys have access to their own settlement software like DissoMaster. We're using financial planning tools here at the firm, of course. But it's just real firepower. I mean, you have somebody who's, at least from our standpoint, we're not working as neutrals. That's a different type of role. But you have somebody on the team that can really help your clients before, during, and after the case. And it makes their lives easier. These attorneys are spread thin. It's a very emotional, intense experience for the attorneys too. So you can bring in somebody with a different point of view who specializes in this work that can help you both with the technical aspects of the case and the client management aspects of the case. Hopefully make the clients better clients, help the clients be more engaged in the process themselves. We're working on a case now where it's really emotional and it's really hard. And to have somebody else in the room or on the team, even if our role is really limited to the financial aspects of things, there's a lot of emotion tied up in that. And we can help. And I just keep going back to that word firepower because at any point, it's just another asset, and it doesn't necessarily have to cost the client anything. I mean, it's just, to us, it's just such a no-brainer.
I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap this up?
No, Carol, thanks so much for having me. I think this was really great to share our approach. I think it is different, right? And I think CDFAs who embrace the process and the philosophy that you've imparted to everybody since you've taken over, we can do a lot of good, and we can really be active and present members in the community and impact people's lives in a way that is not really part of the normal course of business. And I think that's exciting. And it's just exciting to be part of CDFA and IDFA and doing that with you and everybody else.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you not only for your time today, but also, just so this doesn't get lost, you mentioned early on that you're working at UBS and your group is part of UBS. And I wanted to highlight that because there seems to be the misconception that if you're going to focus on divorce and divorce work, you can't do it in a major broker-dealer, and you're living proof that that's just not true.
Yeah, and on that point, I can't imagine doing this not at a broker-dealer or a wirehouse, especially for the clients that we serve. The resources that are available to us, both within the private wealth division, but UBS as a whole, is so amazing. I mean, we have in-house trust and estates experts, in-house family dynamic experts to run family meetings, in-house philanthropy experts, in-house teams to handle insurance. Then there's a whole host of events, women's symposiums, family symposiums. Here and in Europe, there's all kinds of different experts that we can bring to bear on portfolio construction and cash flow dynamics. There's a whole team. I mentioned the research that we've done. There's a whole team of statisticians and analysts just focusing on research that will help us better serve our clients. And having that at your fingertips for high net worth divorce is so powerful, both for quick check-ins and for long-term planning. I like I said, I can't imagine doing it independently or outside of this platform. It's really amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Talk to you soon.